The radio telescope in Chile had been scanning the same patch of sky for 3 months when the signal arrived. Dr. Emma Rodriguez felt her coffee grow cold as she stared at the patterns flowing across her screen. After 40 years of listening to cosmic silence, humanity had finally received its first message from another world. The transmission came from a star system called Gliese 667c, located 47 light-years from Earth. The signal was complex and clearly artificial, containing mathematical sequences that no natural phenomenon could produce. Emma's hands trembled as she saved the data and began the protocols for confirming an extraterrestrial contact. Within hours, the world's best linguists and mathematicians had gathered at the facility. Professor David Kim led the translation team, his eyes bloodshot from staring at alien symbols for days without rest. The message contained detailed diagrams of biological processes, cellular structures, and what appeared to be planetary ecosystem maps. The aliens had somehow included information about Earth's atmosphere, ocean composition, and even human genetic markers. This level of detail shocked the translation team and suggested the aliens had been studying humanity for decades, possibly centuries, but it was the final section of the message that changed everything. The computer systems consistently translated certain symbols as consumption, harvest, and biomass optimization. The aliens seemed to be describing processes for breaking down organic matter and converting it into useful resources. Dr. Kim called an emergency meeting with government officials from around the world. The translated message was projected onto screens in secure facilities across every continent. Military advisors, scientists, and world leaders studied the alien communication with growing alarm. "The mathematical precision is undeniable," Dr. Kim explained to the assembled group. "These beings have been watching us, cataloging our biology, mapping our planet's resources. The references to human DNA sequences are too accurate to be coincidental." Admiral Robert Hayes, recently appointed to head the new Earth Defense Initiative, stood before the United Nations Emergency Council. His voice carried the weight of humanity's greatest fear as he addressed the assembled representatives. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are not dealing with peaceful explorers or curious scientists. This message reads like a detailed invasion plan. They know our weaknesses, our biological vulnerabilities, our planet's exact composition." The word harvest appears 47 times in the translation. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe, but they had never prepared for the possibility that their cosmic neighbors might view them as nothing more than resources to be collected. Dr. Rodriguez tried to raise concerns about the translation accuracy. "The linguistic patterns are unlike anything we've encountered. We could be misinterpreting cultural context or missing important nuances in meaning." But her warnings were drowned out by the rising panic among world leaders. The message had provided coordinates to the alien homeworld, which military strategists interpreted as an invitation to witness humanity's destruction. The biological data was seen as reconnaissance information gathered in preparation for an attack within days. Every major government on Earth had committed unprecedented resources to a single goal: developing weapons capable of interstellar warfare. The message had accomplished what centuries of diplomacy had failed to achieve. It had united humanity under a common cause. The Manhattan Project seemed small compared to the scale of the Prometheus Initiative. Every university, corporation, and research facility was converted into a weapons development center. Peaceful space exploration programs were abandoned as their scientists were reassigned to military projects. Dr. Lisa Shang, a marine biologist who had spent her career studying coral reef ecosystems, found herself designing biological weapons. Her team used the alien genetic information from the message to create pathogens that could theoretically target any carbon-based life form with similar biochemistry. The world's economy was restructured around war production. Rare earth minerals were stripped from every available source to build weapon systems. The planet itself became a massive military-industrial complex focused on a single enemy 47 light-years away. Dr. Alex Turner, Formerly a theoretical physicist working on clean energy solutions, now led a team developing fusion warheads, capable of functioning in the vacuum of space. His weapons were mounted on humanity's first true warships, massive vessels, constructed in orbital shipyards that had been built in record time. The crown jewel of humanity's arsenal was the Extinction Protocol, a series of self-replicating nanobots designed to consume and convert organic matter. Once deployed on a planetary surface, they would spread like a virus, breaking down all biological material and leaving behind only sterile minerals. Captain Maria Santos commanded the flagship of humanity's first interstellar fleet, the Retribution. Was a kilometer-long vessel bristling with weapons that had never been tested in combat. As she watched the final preparations from the bridge, she felt the weight of her species, survival pressing down on her shoulders. The alien message had provided star charts and navigational data, which human strategists interpreted as evidence of overconfidence. The aliens clearly believed humanity was too primitive to pose a threat, which made the element of surprise possible. All ships report ready for quantum jump, her communications officer announced. The technology for faster-than-light travel had been developed in just 18 months. Driven by the desperate need to reach the alien homeworld before they could launch their attack on Earth, Santos looked out at the fleet of 50 warships floating in formation around her flagship. Each vessel carried enough firepower to destroy a small planet. The nanobots alone could render an entire world uninhabitable within days. "Begin the jump sequence," she ordered. "Set course for the Gliese system." The ships vanished into quantum space, leaving Earth's solar system for the first time in human history. They carried with them the hopes and fears of 8 billion people, along with weapons designed to announce humanity's presence to the universe in the most violent way possible. Behind them, Earth's remaining population waited in underground bunkers and fortified cities, preparing for the alien retaliation that would surely come. The message had promised that humanity would be harvested, and every person on the planet believed that war was the only alternative to extinction. Nobody questioned whether the translation might be wrong. Nobody considered that the aliens might have peaceful intentions. The fear was too strong, the stakes too high, and the evidence too convincing. Humanity was about to make first contact with another civilization, and they had already decided that only one species would survive the encounter. The orbital shipyards around Earth never stopped working. Day and night, sparks flew from welding torches as humanity's greatest minds pushed the boundaries of physics and engineering. What had seemed impossible 18 months ago was now floating in formation above the planet. A fleet of warships unlike anything in human history. Dr. Lisa Chang stood in her laboratory, surrounded by specimens that would have terrified her former colleagues. The woman who had once dedicated her life to preserving marine ecosystems now spent her days creating weapons capable of destroying entire biospheres. Her team had reverse-engineered the alien genetic signatures from the message, using them to develop pathogens that would target any carbon-based life form with similar biochemistry. The viral weapons were stored in specialized containment units aboard each warship. Once released into an alien atmosphere, they would spread rapidly through any population that shared the genetic markers described in the original message. The aliens had unknowingly provided humanity with the perfect blueprint for their own destruction. The mortality rate should be 98% within 72 hours, Dr. Chang explained to the military commanders reviewing her work. The remaining 2% will suffer organ failure within a week. There will be no survivors. Her words carried no emotion, no remorse. The woman who had once cried when coral reefs died now discussed genocide with the clinical detachment of a scientist describing a chemical reaction. The alien threat had transformed not just humanity's technology, but its very soul. Meanwhile, physicist Dr. Alex Turner had solved problems that had puzzled scientists for decades. His fusion warheads were compact enough to fit inside missile casings, yet powerful enough to crack moons. The weapons drew their energy from the same process that powered stars, creating miniature suns that could burn in the vacuum of space. Each warhead contains the equivalent of 50 megatons of TNT, Turner briefed the fleet commanders. The fusion reaction creates temperatures exceeding 100 million degrees. Nothing organic can survive within a 1,000-kilometer radius of the detonation. The warheads were mounted on missiles that could track targets across star systems. Humanity had created weapons that could chase fleeing enemies through interstellar space, ensuring that no alien ship would escape the coming purge. But the most terrible creation was the Extinction Protocol. Dr. Maya Patel, formerly a researcher in sustainable agriculture, had designed nanobots that could consume and convert any organic matter they encountered. The microscopic machines were programmed to seek out carbon-based molecules and break them down into component atoms. Once deployed, they will spread across a planetary surface like a gray tide, Dr. Patel explained to the assembled scientists. They consume everything: plants, animals, bacteria, even organic compounds in the soil. Within days, they will have stripped the planet of all biological material. The nanobots were self-replicating, using the matter they consumed to build more copies of themselves. They would continue to spread until every organic molecule on a planet had been converted into sterile minerals. It was the ultimate weapon of annihilation, designed to ensure that no trace of the alien civilization would remain. Captain Maria Santos walked through the weapon bays of her flagship, the Retribution. The ship stretched for over a kilometer, its hull bristling with missile launchers, energy cannons, and deployment systems for the biological weapons. Every surface was covered with armor plating, designed to withstand the vacuum of space and the radiation of dying stars. The crew of the Retribution consisted of volunteers from every nation on Earth. They had been selected not just for their skills, but for their absolute commitment to humanity's survival. Each person aboard the ship understood that they might not return from this mission, but they also knew that failure would mean the extinction of their species. Final weapon system checks complete, reported Lieutenant Tom Bradley, the ship's tactical officer. All fusion warheads are armed and ready. Biological weapons are secured in deployment pods. Extinction Protocol nanobots are loaded and awaiting release authorization. Santos nodded grimly. The weight of command had aged her beyond her years. She had been chosen to lead humanity's first interstellar mission, but this was not the exploration voyage she had dreamed of as a young officer. This was a mission of extermination. The other ships in the fleet were equally impressive. The Vengeance carried experimental energy weapons that could boil oceans from orbit. The Judgment was equipped with kinetic bombardment systems that could rain tungsten rods down on a planet's surface at relativistic speeds. The Reckoning housed the backup supply of Extinction Protocol nanobots, ensuring that even if the primary deployment failed, the alien world would still be sterilized. Each vessel represented humanity's greatest technological achievement and its darkest moral failure. They were masterpieces of engineering created for the sole purpose of committing genocide on a scale never before imagined. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, now serving as the fleet's xenobiology expert, had tried repeatedly to raise concerns about the translation of the alien message. But her warnings were dismissed by commanders who had already committed to their course of action. The evidence seemed too clear, the threat too immediate, and the stakes too high to risk second-guessing their interpretation. The mathematical precision of their biological data suggests extensive surveillance, Admiral Hayes had concluded during the final briefing. They know our weaknesses better than we do. This is not a message of peace, it is a declaration of war. The quantum drive technology that powered the fleet had been developed in record time, driven by humanity's desperate need to reach the alien homeworld before they could launch their attack on Earth. The drives could fold spacetime, allowing the ships to travel faster than light without violating the laws of physics, but the technology was untested and dangerous. Several prototype ships had been lost during test flights, their crews scattered across dimensions that human science could not comprehend. The survivors of those experiments had been driven mad by what they had witnessed in the spaces between stars. All ships report ready for quantum jump, Santos announced over the fleet communication system. Destination, Gliese 667C system. Mission parameters: total sterilization of alien threat. There will be no survivors. The fleet's AI systems had been programmed with detailed analysis of the alien message. They would guide the weapons to their targets, ensuring maximum effectiveness of the attack. The computers showed no mercy, no hesitation, no doubt about the mission's necessity. As the ships prepared to enter quantum space, the crews said their final prayers and recorded their last messages to loved ones on Earth. They knew they were about to commit an act that would define humanity's place in the universe forever. The quantum drives activated with a sound like reality tearing apart. Space-time folded around the fleet as they vanished from Earth's solar system, carrying with them the hopes and fears of an entire species. Behind them, the planet waited in darkness, its population huddled in underground shelters, preparing for the alien retaliation that would surely come. In the depths of space, 50 ships full of weapons and warriors raced toward a star system 47 light-years away. Their mission was simple: destroy the alien civilization before it could. Destroy humanity. The universe was about to witness the birth of a new kind of monster. The human fleet emerged from quantum space at the edge of the Gliese system like wolves materializing from a nightmare. Captain Maria Santos felt her breath catch as the tactical displays filled with impossible structures that defied everything humanity thought they knew about engineering and physics. Massive biostructures orbited the alien homeworld, their surfaces pulsing with patterns of light that seemed almost alive. The constructions were beautiful in a way that made Santos feel small and primitive, like a caveman discovering a cathedral. They stretched for hundreds of kilometers, their organic curves suggesting they had been grown rather than built. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Tom Bradley from his position at the sensor station. "The scale of these structures is beyond anything we imagined. Some of them are larger than Earth's moon." The alien homeworld itself was a jewel of blues and greens, with vast cities that seemed to flow naturally from the landscape. Rivers of light connected distant settlements, and the atmosphere shimmered with an aurora-like glow that suggested advanced energy technologies. It was a paradise world, a garden maintained by beings who had clearly mastered the art of living in harmony with their environment. Bioships moved between the orbital platforms with graceful efficiency. Their hulls were translucent, revealing internal structures that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. The vessels looked more like living creatures than machines, and their movements suggested intelligence and purpose rather than mere automation. "Admiral, we're detecting movement from the alien vessels," reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. "They appear to be approaching our position." Santos studied the tactical display with growing confusion. The alien ships were moving toward the human fleet, but their formations were loose and non-threatening. They approached slowly, almost cautiously, as if they were trying not to startle a dangerous animal. "Are they armed?" Santos asked her tactical officer. "No weapon signatures detected," came the reply. "In fact, I'm not seeing any military installations anywhere in the system. No defense platforms, no weapon emplacements, nothing that suggests a warrior culture." The revelation sent a chill through the bridge crew. They had expected to face a military armada, not a peaceful civilization. But the memory of the translated message burned in their minds, the references to harvesting, to biomass optimization, to the detailed knowledge of human biology. This had to be a trap. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission," Lieutenant Park announced. "It's the same mathematical sequence from the original message, but now it's being followed by what appears to be star charts and, invitation protocols." Santos felt a moment of doubt creep into her mind. The aliens were broadcasting welcome messages, sharing navigational data, and sending what could only be interpreted as peaceful greetings. But the intelligence briefings had been clear. This was a deception, a way to lure humanity into a false sense of security before the harvest began. "The biological weapons are armed and ready," her tactical officer reported. "Fusion warheads are locked onto the primary orbital structures. Extinction protocol nanobots are loaded into deployment pods and awaiting your command." Santos looked at the peaceful alien city floating in the void ahead of them. Billions of beings lived on that world, beings who had sent humanity a message that their own scientists had interpreted as a declaration of war. But what if the translation was wrong? What if they were about to commit genocide against an innocent civilization? The doubt lasted only a moment. The stakes were too high, the evidence too convincing, and the risk too great. If humanity was wrong and the aliens were peaceful, it would be a tragedy. But if the aliens were hostile and humanity hesitated, it would be extinction. All ships, commence Operation Cleansing Fire, Santos ordered. Her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. The first salvo of fusion warheads struck the alien orbital platforms before the beings inside could even comprehend what was happening. The weapons detonated with the fury of newborn stars, their nuclear fire-consuming structures that had taken centuries to grow. The beautiful bioarchitecture dissolved into expanding clouds of superheated plasma, the alien bioships apparently. Never designed for combat, simply disintegrated under the assault. Their organic hulls offered no protection against weapons designed to crack moons and boil oceans. The creatures inside died instantly, their final moments filled with confusion and terror. "The orbital platforms are destroyed," reported the tactical officer. "Alien vessels are scattering, but our missiles are tracking them. No survivors expected." Santos watched the destruction with a mixture of satisfaction and horror. The aliens had been caught completely off guard, their peaceful nature making them easy targets for humanity's weapons of war. But even as their civilization died around them, they continued to broadcast messages of peace and confusion. "They're sending mathematical formulas," Lieutenant Park reported, her voice shaking. "Simple equations that any spacefaring civilization would understand. They're asking us to stop, to communicate, to find a peaceful solution." But the human fleet's commanders had been trained to expect deception. Every alien transmission was analyzed for hidden meanings, every peaceful gesture was interpreted as a tactical ruse. The aliens' desperate attempts at communication only confirmed to the human commanders that they were dealing with a sophisticated enemy. The bombardment continued for hours. Fusion warheads reduced the alien cities to radioactive craters. Energy. Weapons boiled their oceans and shattered their mountains. The beautiful garden world was transformed into a hellscape of fire and radiation. As the orbital bombardment reached its climax, Santos gave the order she had hoped never to use. "Deploy the extinction protocol." The nanobots were released from their containment pods like a gray snow falling from orbit. They spread across the alien world's surface, consuming everything in their path. Plants, animals, bacteria, even organic compounds in the soil, all were broken down into component atoms and converted into more nanobots. The aliens' final transmission was a simple mathematical sequence broadcast on every frequency they could access. It was a formula for peace, a universal equation that described the harmony between different forms of life. Any civilization advanced enough to build radio telescopes would recognize it as a message of friendship and cooperation, but humanity's translators, programmed to expect deception and trained to look for hidden threats, classified the transmission as a weapon activation code. The communication channels were jammed, cutting off the aliens' last desperate plea for understanding. Within 72 hours, the once beautiful world had been transformed into a sterile ball of rock and metal. The Extinction Protocol nanobots had consumed every organic molecule on the planet's surface, leaving behind only the skeletal remains of cities and the silent testimony of a civilization that had been wiped from existence. Santos stood on the bridge of the Retribution, staring at the dead world through the viewscreen. The mission had been a complete success. The alien threat had been eliminated before it could harm humanity. But the victory felt hollow, tainted by the nagging doubt that they might have made a terrible mistake. "All ships prepare for a quantum jump back to Earth," she ordered. "Mission accomplished. The alien threat has been neutralized." As the human fleet prepared to return home, long-range sensors detected new signals from across the galaxy. The universe had taken notice of humanity's actions, and the response was beginning to form in the darkness between the stars. The humans had announced their presence to the cosmos with an act of unprecedented violence. They had proven themselves. capable of destroying an entire civilization without provocation or mercy. The galaxy would remember this day, and it would judge humanity accordingly. But for now, the fleet prepared to return to Earth as heroes, bringing news of a victory that would soon transform into humanity's greatest nightmare. The celebration on Earth lasted exactly 47 days. Every major city held parades honoring the heroes who had saved humanity from extinction. Captain Maria Santos became the most famous person alive, her image broadcast across every screen on the planet. Children wore uniforms modeled after the Retribution crew, and songs were written about humanity's first victory in interstellar war, but the party ended abruptly when Dr. Emma Rodriguez made a discovery that shattered the foundation of human civilization. Deep in the ruins of the alien homeworld, automated probes had collected samples of the destroyed biostructures. The analysis revealed a truth that made her physically ill. The biological formulas in the original alien message were not weapon designs. They were detailed instructions for terraforming technology, showing how to transform barren worlds into gardens capable of supporting life. The aliens had been offering to share their knowledge, to help humanity spread across the galaxy and turn dead rocks into thriving ecosystems. The word we translated as harvest actually means cultivation, Dr. Rodriguez explained to an emergency session of the World Council. Her voice shook as she continued. They were describing agricultural processes, not military operations. They were gardeners, not conquerors. The revelation hit the assembled leaders like a physical blow. The alien message had not been a declaration of war. It had been an offer of friendship. The detailed knowledge of human biology was not reconnaissance data, but a gesture of trust, showing that the aliens understood Earth's needs and were willing to help, but the truth came too late. Long-range sensors had detected massive energy signatures throughout the galaxy, and the patterns suggested coordinated military mobilization on a scale that dwarfed anything humanity had ever imagined. The universe had taken notice of the genocide in the Glee system, and the reaction was swift and terrible. We count at least 300 distinct civilizations responding to the incident, reported Dr. Kim from the Deep Space Communications Array. The signals suggest they are forming some kind of alliance or coalition. We are receiving broadcasts in 17 different languages, all containing the same message: humanity is to be held accountable for war crimes. The first alien fleet to reach Earth's solar system was unlike anything in human nightmares. Their ships were massive beyond comprehension, each vessel larger than entire human cities. The hulls were black as space itself, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, and their very presence seemed to bend reality around them. Captain Mike Foster, now commanding the rebuilt Earth Defense Fleet, watched helplessly as humanity's most powerful weapons struck the alien vessels with no visible effect. The fusion warheads that had devastated the peaceful Gardner world exploded harmlessly against energy shields that seemed to mock human technology. "All weapons are having zero impact," reported his tactical officer. "It's like shooting spitwads at a battleship. We're not even scratching their paint." The alien commander's voice resonated through every communication device on Earth simultaneously. The translation was perfect, delivered by technology that made human linguistics look primitive and crude. The words carried the weight of cosmic authority and unshakable moral judgment. "People of Earth," the voice echoed across the planet, "you have murdered the cultivators, the most peaceful species in our galaxy. They reached out to you with friendship, offering to share their knowledge of life and growth. They wanted to help you transform dead worlds into gardens, to spread life throughout the cosmos. In return, you delivered only death and destruction." The alien fleet took position around Earth's moon, their massive ships casting shadows across the lunar surface. More fleets were arriving daily, representing civilizations from across the galaxy. Some were ancient races that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless species. Others were younger civilizations that had been friends and trading partners with the destroyed Gardner race. "The cultivators were beloved throughout the galaxy," the alien commander continued. "They had helped thousands of worlds bloom with life. They had no weapons, no military, no concept of war. They believed that all intelligent life shared a common purpose, to nurture and protect the cosmos that gave them birth. Dr. Rodriguez stood before the emergency session of the United Nations, her face pale with the weight of humanity's mistake. The probe data was undeniable. The alien civilization had been completely peaceful, their entire culture devoted to growing things and helping other species thrive. "We found nurseries on their homeworld," she reported. Vast growing facilities where they cultivated seeds from thousands of different worlds. They were preparing gift packages for Earth samples of plants that could thrive in our climate, organisms that could help restore our damaged ecosystems. The magnitude of the error was staggering. Humanity had not just committed genocide, they had destroyed their greatest potential ally. The cultivators had been offering to teach humanity how to heal their own world and spread life throughout the galaxy. Instead, they had been repaid with extinction. "The Galactic Council has voted unanimously," the alien commander announced. "Humanity has proven itself to be a threat to all life in the universe. You will be contained within your own solar system, until such time as your species demonstrates the capacity for peaceful coexistence." The containment was absolute and immediate. Every human ship beyond Earth's orbit was either destroyed or captured. The space stations around Mars were vaporized, their crews given no time to surrender. The colonial outposts on Jupiter's moons were seized, their inhabitants transported to prison worlds in distant star systems. Within hours, humanity found itself trapped in its own solar system, surrounded by an impenetrable barrier of alien technology. The barrier was invisible but absolute. Any attempt to cross it resulted in instant disintegration. Ships, missiles, radio signals, even light itself was absorbed and neutralized. Captain Foster watched from the bridge of his flagship as the barrier sealed shut around Earth's solar system. The stars beyond were still visible, but they might as well have been painted on a wall. Humanity had reached for the cosmos and found only the cage they had built with their own fear and violence. "How long will they keep us here?" asked his communications officer. Foster stared at the alien fleet maintaining their vigil just beyond the moon. "Forever, if necessary. We proved what we were capable of. They'll never trust us again." The isolation was complete and devastating. Earth's economy collapsed as trade with the outer colonies ceased. The dreams of interstellar expansion that had driven human civilization for centuries were replaced by the grim reality of permanent imprisonment. The species that had once believed they were destined to inherit the stars found themselves reduced to prisoners in their own home, but the worst part was the knowledge that they had brought this fate upon themselves. The aliens had offered friendship, knowledge, and partnership in building a better universe. Humanity had responded with genocide and was now facing the consequences of that choice. The message from the cultivators was finally translated correctly, 47 days too late. It had been a simple greeting. "Hello, distant cousins. We see that you are young and eager to explore. We offer our knowledge of how to make dead worlds bloom with life. Together we can fill the galaxy with gardens." Instead of gardens, humanity had sown only death. The universe had judged them accordingly, and the sentence was isolation until the end of time. The stars that had once seemed so close now felt infinitely far away, separated by a barrier built from humanity's own cruelty and fear. 50 years had passed since the barrier closed around Earth's solar system. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, now 93 and confined to a wheelchair, sat in her small apartment overlooking the ruins of Geneva. The city had never recovered from the economic collapse that followed humanity's imprisonment, and weeds grew through the cracks in the empty streets. The world had changed beyond recognition. The old nations had dissolved, replaced by a single global government called the Unity Council. Wars had become impossible when everyone shared the same cage, and humanity had finally achieved the peace that had eluded them for millennia. The irony was not lost on Rodriguez. They had found unity only after losing their freedom. The barrier weakens slightly every few decades, she explained to her assistant, Dr. Tom Wilson, who had become her closest friend in the years since the containment began. Our physicists believe the aliens are testing us, waiting to see if we can evolve beyond our violent nature. Wilson nodded grimly. He had spent his entire career studying the barrier technology, trying to understand how it worked and whether it could be overcome. The energy readings were beyond human comprehension, powered by forces that made their fusion weapons look like firecrackers. Every time we show progress, every time we seem to be moving toward genuine peace, something happens. Rodriguez continued. A terrorist attack, a riot, a murder that makes headlines. They're watching us, and they're not impressed with what they see. The truth was more complex than most humans understood. The galaxy had not forgotten about Earth, but they had also not written off humanity entirely. The barrier served multiple purposes. It protected the universe from human aggression while giving humanity time to mature as a species. Children born after the containment had grown up in a world where war was impossible and cooperation was necessary for survival. They had never known the freedom of the stars, but they had also never known the fear and paranoia that had driven their parents to commit genocide. These young people represented humanity's only hope for redemption. Dr. Wilson had established the Redemption Project, a global initiative focused on demonstrating humanity's capacity for peaceful coexistence. The project had built sustainable cities, ended hunger and poverty, and created a society based on cooperation rather than competition. But the aliens were not impressed by these achievements. We'd been broadcasting apologies and peace offerings for 50 years, Wilson said during one of their daily meetings. We've shown them our art, our music, our philosophy. We've demonstrated that we can live in harmony with our environment and with each other, but they're not listening anymore. The alien fleet maintained its vigil just beyond the moon, their massive ships serving as a constant reminder of humanity's crime. Sometimes the ships would move or change formation, but they never responded to human attempts at communication. They had said everything they needed to say on the day the barrier closed. Rodriguez struggled to her feet and walked to the window, looking up at the stars that had once seemed so close. The night sky was beautiful, but it felt like looking at a painting in a museum, distant, untouchable, and forever beyond reach. We became the monsters we feared, she whispered. We received a message of friendship and responded with genocide. The universe has judged us, and we have been found wanting. The younger generation had a different perspective on their situation. They had grown up in a world where violence was rare and cooperation was the norm. They could not understand how their parents had been capable of such cruelty, and they refused to accept that they should be punished for crimes they had never committed. Dr. Sarah Chun, Wilson's student and the leader of the youth movement, had organized peaceful protests demanding that the aliens reconsider their judgment. She argued that humanity had changed, that the species that had destroyed the cultivators no longer existed. We are not our parents, she declared at a rally in the ruins of New York. We have learned from their mistakes. We have built a better world from the ashes of their failures. We deserve a chance to prove ourselves to the galaxy. But the aliens were unmoved by these protests. They had seen too many civilizations promise to change, only to revert to their violent nature when given the opportunity. The containment would remain in place until humanity could prove beyond any doubt that they were ready to rejoin the galactic community. The barrier itself had become a subject of scientific study. Human physicists had determined that it was not simply a wall but a complex system that filtered everything entering or leaving the solar system. It allowed sunlight to pass through but blocked all forms of human technology and communication. The most disturbing discovery was that the barrier was not just keeping humanity in, it was keeping other things out. Long-range sensors had detected massive energy signatures moving through the galaxy, suggesting conflicts and catastrophes on a scale that dwarfed anything in human history. The universe beyond the barrier was not the peaceful paradise that humanity had imagined. There are wars out there, Dr. Wilson explained to the Unity Council. Civilizations are fighting and dying while we sit here in our cage. The aliens are not just punishing us, they're protecting us from something worse. The realization was sobering. Humanity had always assumed that advanced civilizations would be peaceful and enlightened, but the evidence suggested otherwise. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of species that made humanity's past violence look mild by comparison. But this knowledge also raised new questions. If the aliens were protecting humanity from external threats, did that mean they still saw potential in the species? Was the containment truly permanent, or was it a form of quarantine that would eventually end? Rodriguez spent her final years writing a comprehensive history of humanity's first contact with alien civilization. Her book, titled The Message We Misunderstood, became required reading in schools across the planet. It served as a reminder of the consequences of fear and the importance of choosing understanding over violence. We had the chance to join a galactic community dedicated to spreading life throughout the universe, she wrote in her final chapter. Instead, we chose to spread death. The aliens did not imprison us out of cruelty, they imprisoned us out of necessity. We had proven ourselves to be a threat to all life in the cosmos. The book's conclusion was stark but honest. Perhaps future generations will be worthy of the stars. Perhaps they will learn from our mistakes and find a way to earn the galaxy's trust. But we have lost that right forever. We reached for the heavens and found only the cage we built with our own fear and hatred. As Rodriguez died peacefully in her sleep, the alien fleet maintained its silent watch over Earth. Her death marked the end of an era. She had been the last surviving member of the original translation team that had misinterpreted the cultivator's message. With her passing, humanity lost its final direct connection to the moment when everything went wrong. Dr. Wilson inherited her research and her mission. He had spent decades studying the barrier technology, and he had noticed subtle changes in its behavior over the years. The energy patterns shifted periodically, as if the aliens were adjusting the parameters of humanity's imprisonment. They're not just keeping us here, he realized during one of his late-night research sessions. They're studying us, watching how we develop in isolation. This isn't just punishment, it's an experiment. The younger generation had grown up with stories of the stars, but they had no real understanding of what humanity had lost. To them, Earth was the entire universe, and the barrier was simply a fact of life like gravity or the tides. They had built a peaceful society within their cosmic prison, but they had also lost the drive for exploration and discovery that had once defined the human spirit. Some humans still argued for breaking through the barrier by force. Military hardliners claimed that humanity could develop new weapons capable of overcoming alien technology. But these voices grew weaker with each passing year as the reality of their situation became undeniable. The aliens possessed technology that was thousands of years ahead of anything humans could imagine. Their ships drew power from the vacuum of space itself, and their weapons could manipulate the fundamental forces of physics. Any attempt to challenge them would be like insects attacking a skyscraper, Dr. Chun and her youth movement had taken a different approach. They focused on cultural and artistic achievements, hoping to demonstrate humanity's capacity for beauty and creativity. They sent music and poetry toward the alien fleet, broadcasting symphonies and displaying art installations visible from space, but the aliens remained silent. Their ships continued their eternal patrol, neither acknowledging human attempts at communication nor responding to their artistic offerings. They had become as constant and unchanging as the stars themselves, a reminder of humanity's fallen status. The barrier had created an entire generation of humans who had never seen another world or met another species. They knew about aliens only from history books and old video recordings. To them, the idea of traveling between stars seemed as fantastical as magic. Climate change had accelerated on Earth during the years of isolation. Without access to the cultivator's terraforming technology, humanity struggled to repair the damage they had inflicted on their homeworld. The oceans were rising, the forests were dying, and the weather patterns had become increasingly chaotic. "We're slowly destroying the only world we have left," Wilson observed during a Unity Council meeting. "The cultivators could have taught us how to heal our planet, how to live in harmony with our environment. Instead, we chose violence and condemned ourselves to watch our world die." The most tragic aspect of humanity's situation was the knowledge of what they had lost. Archaeological studies of the destroyed cultivator homeworld had revealed the full scope of their peaceful civilization. They had been gardeners on a cosmic scale, spreading life throughout the galaxy and helping young species learn to nurture their environments. The cultivators had maintained vast libraries of genetic information from thousands of worlds. They had collected seeds, samples, and biological data from every habitable planet they encountered, creating a living archive of the galaxy's biodiversity. All of this knowledge had been destroyed in humanity's unprovoked attack. We didn't just commit genocide, Wilson reflected. We destroyed the galaxy's greatest repository of biological knowledge. Millions of species' genetic information was lost forever because of our fear and paranoia. The barrier occasionally flickered, allowing brief glimpses of the universe beyond. During these moments, human scientists could detect radio signals from distant civilizations, hints of the vast galactic community that humanity had been excluded from. The signals suggested ongoing conflicts, scientific discoveries, and cultural exchanges on a scale that dwarfed anything in human history. But these glimpses only made the isolation more painful. Humanity could see what they were missing, but could never be part of it. They had been reduced to cosmic observers, watching the universe evolve without them. As the 50th anniversary of the containment approached, a new generation of leaders emerged on Earth. They had been children when the barrier closed, and they represented humanity's last hope for redemption. These leaders understood that they were not responsible for their species' crime, but they also accepted responsibility for proving that humanity had changed. Dr. Wilson, now elderly himself, made his final entry in Rodriguez's research journal. His words were simple but carried the weight of half a century of regret. We received a message of friendship and responded with annihilation. The universe has judged us and we have been found wanting. Perhaps future generations will be worthy of the stars, but we have lost that right forever. Above Earth, the alien barrier continued its silent vigil, a monument to the price of misunderstanding and the tragic consequences of choosing fear over hope. The stars remained visible in the night sky, beautiful and distant, serving as a constant reminder of the cosmic community that humanity had rejected through their own violence. The cage was perfect, invisible, and eternal. Humanity had built it themselves with their first act of interstellar communication, and they would remain within it until they could prove they deserved to be free. The universe waited patiently for that day, but it was prepared to wait forever if necessary.